All right, guys, welcome back to the 50/50 Showcase on City of Heroes Homecoming Server, Excelsior Shard. This is episode 34, my fourth Mastermind out of five. This is Dr. Voltaous. He is Necromancy, Electrical Affinity. I think it's the first time I'm playing that buff set. And Mew Mastery, one of my favorite mastery powers that's out there. Anyway, this guy is a Twitch buffer. Okay, he is going to be buffing. Electric Affinity, if you've not played this set, is, I think, OP as F. It is just a really powerful buffing, healing, support set. It's very twitchy, very clicky, which is probably the reason I don't play it more, because you have to target an ally and fire a buff, and then it jumps between a bunch of your other allies, so it's hard to control. It's also just, like I said, very clicky, so you're constantly you don't really have time to focus on the enemies too much because you're constantly just throwing out these heals and absorbs and you know I think it's plus to hits or whatever the hell it is. Anyway, you'll see. You'll see. Trust me. So it's very clicky, which makes it very exhausting. I think it's even worse in that degree as far as like compared to like kinetics as an example, where you're constantly throwing out speed boosts and increased densities and even that's pretty much the extent of it, right? But then you're targeting enemies with your other buffs and such. But this is like most of the powers are you're targeting an ally and shooting through them. On Masterminds, it's not as bad because you have pets, obviously, to target. If you're soloing, it's not that great because who do you target with your buffs if you have no one there with you if you're a solo defender. You have to take the little pet thing that it's got, which I don't think Masterminds get that in their version of it. So no, as I look at the power sets here. Anyway, I digress. Let's take a look at the mids build so you can see what I'm talking about, and then of course we'll go ahead and run some missions, solo and team, and you can really see what I'm talking about. All right, let me go ahead and get mids open. Here we go. All right, here's mids. And if you take a look at Necromancy, I've got just about everything with the exception of Soul Extraction. Now, just as an FYI, and maybe in fairness to me, some of you guys might be looking at some of my Mastermind builds so far this week, and here's an example of one. You're like, hey, why is he not taking that power? That power is awesome. For those of you who don't know, the Homecoming team made a buffing pass on, I think it was three of the Mastermind sets, and Necro was one of them. So anyway, it's better than it was. So there are certain powers that I might have skipped that, in hindsight, if you knew these buffs, these changes to the sets were coming, you would have taken them. I've not remade these builds for that update to the Mastermind pets, which was what, almost a year ago, I think. And I think Soul Extraction is one of the ones that might make more sense in hindsight to be taking it now. But anyway, I didn't take it, so sue me. But I have pretty much everything else. I went with the three blasts on this one because I'm going to be, just firing single target stuff all over the place. Dark Blast, Gloom, and Life Drain. And then you got your Zombie Horde, which are your minions. Grave Knights, which are your lieutenants. The Lich is the boss. Oh, that's the other thing that was changed. I don't know if that popped up in my other conversations, but they've made, I think, some of the stuff earlier as far as when you can select it at certain levels. So anyway, there's lots of changes and things that have happened. So for instance, the Lich, I think you can used to be like 26 is when you had to wait. Now you can get it at 22 if you look at the little pop-ups there. Lich, Power Set Necromancy available level 22 placed at 26. So when I first built this character, 26 is when you got your boss. You can now get it at 22. So, again, in hindsight, you could go back and rework, the order of operations here and exactly which powers. But this is the build I have. This is the one I'm working with. So we're going to go with it. You'll also see I've got most of Electrical Affinity because it is a very awesome, powerful set. I did not take the res power. I've commented on that before. I just don't find res is super valuable in the game anymore, especially on a Mastermind. I can't res a pet, so that doesn't help me. And then the big change, I think I took one less leadership that you've seen compared to my other Mastermind so far. Usually I have maneuvers, assault, and tactics. I only have maneuvers and tactics. And that's mainly because I'm going more for a buffer here. I don't really, focus too much on damage, so I didn't take the assault. I even dipped into sorcery pool in order to take like inflame as another way to buff and get damage. Spirit ward is another way to buff and keep pets alive or allies alive. So I took it for that. I took the Mystic Flight just because it's an easy, nice, fast little teleport and flight power in one. So it's a nice grab there. You could not take Mystic Flight if you want to go with just the pay to win purchases. That's another option. So I don't have as much of the pool powers as you've seen me before, where I've taken hasten or combat jumping, maybe stealth or something like that. I have leadership and sorcery are it. And then I've grabbed some stuff from the Mew Mastery down here. I do have the armor. Let's scoot this down so you can see it. Let me scoot this up so you can see it a little bit better. Here we go. You can see those powers down there better now. So I do have the Mew Mastery. I've got the charged armor. And the electric fence is the AoE immobilize. I also think maybe this might be just sort of more of a fun pick than necessarily a utility pick up. Thunderstrike. I love Thunderstrike. Nice big old whopping melee smashy punchy damage. Love that power. Just love the animation. It's probably crap on Masterminds compared to the other versions, but it's there. I could have went with static discharge. I could have went with the hold. I didn't. This is more, like I said, buff and kind of fun, and so I wasn't worried necessarily about, optimal sort of scenario. But it's an interesting choice. I'll give that to you. Excuse me. Let's take a look then at some power slot choices. Let me go ahead and deactivate my incarnates so that's not masking or fooling anything. All right, scoot this up, turn Sprint on just because, in case, actually, I usually wouldn't have it on because I'll be flying most of the time. I do want to turn on my armor. I do want to have Mystic Flight turned on because I'm usually flying. I think that's everything else I would have on. All right, so what do we got here? We've got the zombie horde. And this wasn't necessarily the order in which I took stuff because, if I was playing this thing straight out of the gate, Zombie Horde would be, first, second level pick for sure, not sixth level. So anyway, don't be confused by this. I'm not recommending wait till level 6 to get your zombie pets. Grave Knight, that's your other big pet, and then the Lich. And you've seen me do this before. I've got the 2 full sets of ATOs. So I've got in Zombie Horde, I'm going with the AoE defense and the pet resist regen. Now, one thing that maybe you ask, hey, went up with the ATO and the boss. I think it's maybe I'm hedging my bets because if I'm interpreting this correctly, at least I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think when you slot this in the I think the aura, the pet AoE defense is off of the pet itself. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. But if I'm right, let me see if I can tell anywhere with what it says here. Yeah, see, it really doesn't say. So I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, let's say the aura comes off of your pet. So if you put this set in the single pet Lich and the Lich dies, well, then you lose that aura. Whereas I've got three of these guys, so if only one dies, I still have the aura. Two dies, I still have the aura. Now maybe this aura comes off of me, so then it really doesn't matter. And the same thing with this one down here. But at least that's the way my P brain is thinking about it. And then I've got the Expedient Reinforcement Resist bonus aura for pets down here in this set. So I'm, trying to get some defenses, some regens, some resistance on my friends here. So that is nothing new as far as my pet slotting goes. Now, what else do I got? What else am I doing? If you take a look, I've invested in a ton. Let me turn off these damn pop-ups because they get annoying sometimes. If you take a look, I've got the other powers, shock. So I'm mostly going to focus the rest of my convo here on electrical affinity because that's really what sets this apart from the other masterminds. Really, it's your secondary. So I have electric affinity. So shock. This is a ranged foe attack, right? It does minus endurance, minus recovery, minus damage, and it grants me static. So I strike a foe with this electric shock. It doesn't do any damage. It's just a debuff. You've seen single target debuffs in the other sets. Nature had one. What was it? Corrosive enzymes. I was spewing that a lot. So it's like that, except it's debuffing recovery, endurance, damage. So it helps you to punish an enemy's recovery is probably the biggest advantage to it. I don't think you're gonna one shot drain somebody with this thing. If you take a look at the actual numbers on it, a single target hit is going to drain 30%. So I could drain close to a third of a target's endurance. So I'd have to hit it 3 times before it's effectively, neutered. So that's not, practical or realistic. But the minus recovery is a little bit more juicy because that's going to prevent them from regaining the endurance for a while. So in and of itself, it's not going to like, oh my God, do something. And probably with a mastermind build, it's probably not doing jack shit, to be straight up with you. And I'm almost thinking nowadays, I think you can actually skip your tier 1 secondary power in because they updated the order in which you can the levels in which you can take stuff. So I think that this is an example of one of the changes that you can take things sooner, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that one, but I'm pretty sure you can nowadays. Right. So anyway, if that's the case, then maybe in hindsight, again, hindsight 2020, you could go back and not take shock as your level 1. Maybe take rejuvenating circuit instead. So that's something I think is doable now. You can skip this one. So maybe that's something you would do on a mastermind because the mastermind really doesn't have any other way to drain endurance. With the Corruptor Defender version of this set, they have that little galvanic pets or galvanic sentinel, I think it's called. And this thing sparks out little end drain, bolts. So, between those two things, you could at least get going. Plus, you could take electric blast, for your primary or secondary. You can take, Mew or Electrical Mastery later. So you could get enough, minus endurance powers between blasts and such on a Defender Corruptor. You can't really do that on a Mastermind. None of the pets off the top of my head, Necro included, has a minus endurance. Not like there's little gremlin electrical pets running around. That'd be pretty cool if there was. So really, shock is not that great. It's mostly for set bonuses. So if you can get some set bonuses out of it, well then maybe that's useful. So let me put the pop up back on so you can see that I'm taking efficacy adapter that gives you hit points recovery. So that's maybe the big use there. Other than that, it's sucking about a third. So this power in and of itself, you could single slot it, you could skip it on Mastermind. And as I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, I could probably redo this whole build and have it way better. I could take that soul extraction if I were to drop shock, or I could take static discharge because I could shift things around a little bit. Anyway, we'll see how it works in practice. And then you can decide if, you make your own. Hey, maybe you should go ahead and make some of these changes I'm talking about. Now, aside from that, the rest of these powers are going to be these jumpy, buff types of powers. So rejuvenating circuit. Let me turn pop-ups off again so you can see it. So here's rejuvenating circuit. This is a ally heal, but it jumps. So you create the circuit of healing between yourself and two nearby allies, healing them for a small amount. Every stack of static that you have will cause it to chain. So that's where shock does have a benefit because you gain static by hitting something with shock. So if you hit somebody with shock and keep throwing into your rotation, I think you can maybe stack up to 3 shock. Or sorry, 3 static. So if that's the case, so maybe shock, 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 you build that up until you hit rejuvenating circuit, and now you're gonna heal not just yourself, but those 2 allies, and then plus 1 more per static. So hypothetically, you can get up to, I don't know, let's say 6, including yourself. But the problem is you need to have a nearby ally. You can't target yourself with this like other heals. So you need to target a pet. That's where electric affinity on masterminds is more useful than on let's say a defender or a corruptor. Because if you don't have that little galvanic sentinel pet or some other pet, then who the hell do you hit with rejuvenating circuit? You have to go on a team. And maybe you don't want a team, maybe you just want a solo. So that power then becomes, almost useless to you. Where you can sort of cheat it is by getting one of the pay to win little pets, but those things are squishy as hell. But it's an option if you need it. Discharge. This is a ranged AoE debuff attack, if you want to call it that. It's similar to shock. So it's minus damage, minus endurance, minus recovery. So if you look at shock, what was that? Minus endurance, minus recovery, minus damage. Discharge, minus damage, minus endurance, minus recovery. So they're pretty much the same damn power. This one has minus regen built in, and it's AoE. This one gives you the static, but really it's the same power. So kind of stupid, right? I don't know. That seems a little bit weird. Maybe make shock jump or like discharge and make discharge something else. Maybe I'm not getting it. Although this one is a blast of electric around your target. So they discharge, zap, and then anybody else around them also can be zapped and drained of endurance. But again, it's kind of one of these things like you need close by, nearby enemies. What if there's only one or spread apart? Then it's not as useful, right? It sounds like I'm downselling electric, but it's mostly just the debuff stuff on electric sucks. This rejuvenating circuit's pretty damn powerful because you can spam the crap out of this thing and keep healing, healing, healing. Plus, you can build it up with static on the shock side. So that's really powerful as long as you have a target. Life Drain, that's just my own attack, so don't be confused like that's one of my buffs. That's my own attack to heal myself. Energizing Circuit, this is like Rejuvenating Circuit, except this is an endurance heal. So Rejuvenating Circuit was ally just healing hit points. Energized Circuit is ally endurance gets healed, and it also boosts their recharge. Plus, it grants you static. So that's the kind of cool thing, right? Or every stack of static causes it to chain. So shock builds static. Static then helps rejuvenating circuit jump more, helps energize the circuit jump more. Similar idea to rejuvenating circuit here. Okay, so if you target an ally, it's then going to be able to jump to nearby allies. Okay, and then the first few targets are going to get more of the juice than the ones down the chain. So you really want to, I think the same is true of the healing circuit as well. So you want to target the most, hurt or drained person on your team with your little jumpy buffs here. If they're way down the chain, then it's hard. But hey, you know what? It's really hard to figure this out. You're going to see in actual team play, if I got team of 6, 8 dudes, I got my pets, I got them. There's enemy bodies everywhere. It's really almost impossible to sit here and try to single target out somebody, especially if more than one guy's getting hurt. So the way I'm playing this guy, I'm just going to be twitching and throwing crap left and right, just zap, 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 because I just can't figure out where my pet is, where my ally is. And so I keep buying tab to be select my next ally, nearest ally. So I'm just going to hit tab and fire, zap, zap, zap. That's all I freaking do. all freaking mission long. I'll be zap, zap, zap. And then I'm going to let my pets just wreak havoc. You might see me just throw these guys on aggressive mode and just let them go sick. All right, what else you got? You got Faraday Cage is another one of your big powers. It's a little dome buff that you drop. It's charged, electrified shield around you. It grants damage resistance to everything but toxic, and it gives some status protection. Uh, Plus, I think it also protects you from minus recharge, recovery, and endurance debuffs, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a nice little power, but it's a drop. Okay, it's you have to keep re-dropping it. It won't follow you. And I don't know how many times I've forgotten that I've left it somewhere, or it's for it that I have it. So it's one of those things that you got to learn how to use it. Learn to play, noob. Let's keep moving to the next one. That's your empowering circuit. So just like rejuvenating circuit, just like energizing circuit, you need an ally. You got a target, and it's going to hit that guy and jump to nearby allies as well. And then your static stacks will let it jump to additional allies. And the closer they are to you when you first, hit them, the more empowerment they're going to get. What does it do? It adds damage. It adds to hit. So this is like a plus damage plus to hit, offensive boost. So you got your healing boost. You got your go-go juice boost with energizing circuit. You got empowering circuit is your to hit and damage. And then, hey, you got one more circuit, insulating circuit. That's this one over here. Same story with the whole, jumping between allies. This one applies an absorb. So, temporary HPs to your allies. Same story as the other circuits. Build stacks of static, and you can, absorb, put this protective shield around more people. So between these four things, you can heal hit points, you can heal endurance, you can boost damage into hit, and you can apply some temporary hit point, absorb on people. So you can just sit here and cycle through these things because their recharges, like this one recharges in 3.5 seconds. This one's recharging in 20 seconds. This one's recharging in 6.5 seconds. And this one's recharging in 8 and 2/3 seconds. So this is like zap, zap, zap. This is the one that's on a longer cooldown. Okay. So you're going to be constantly just, at least the way I do it, I'm just constantly spewing these things. And whenever this is the only one I really kind of think about a little bit more. But these guys, I'm like heal, buff, absorb, heal, buff, absorb, heal, buff, absorb. Oh, here, have some endurance. Boom, boom, boom. And you're just firing these things out. Everybody's getting jacked up on the juice. Okay, that's the way you'll see it. Just twitchy. That's why I call it twitch buffing. Everybody's twitching in like just shock mode the whole time. It's kind of amusing. And then you got Spirit Ward that I can throw on to provide some more absorb over time. So I've got that I can throw out there to keep, let's say, one of my main, allies or one of my pets alive with that thing. I can also throw the inflame on them so they start lighting people on fire as they get near them. That's always amusing to do. And then you've also got the last one I haven't mentioned is Amp Up. This is an ally targeted, so you can target enemy with this one. It's plus special plus recharge. And so what it says is you empower an ally with raw energy, causing all their abilities to unleash chained bolts of electricity at nearby foes. These bolts drain a small amount of endurance and have a chance to knock up the target. Amp Up also moderately increases their attack rate and greatly boosts the secondary effects of their powers. This power affects their power effects like heals, defense buffs, endurance drains, disorients, holds, mobilizes, and more are all improved. So this is great to throw like on a dominator, okay, or a controller or a defender, right? Not so much on your pets. You can amp up anybody. They just start sparking shit flying every time they click. They have to be an active player, right? That's why I think Dominator might be the best. They're sort of just passively sitting back, then amping them up doesn't make any sense. You throw this on some Dommy who's going into freaking sick psycho Dominator mode in melee. It's hilarious, okay? They're just fired up. Their powers are boosting. They're already, firing up Dominate, holds and crap. This is even better. Then they're sparking out the endurance. Things are flying up in the air. It's beautiful. It brings a tear to your eye. So I can't wait to see that. I haven't played this guy in a while, but I'm just chuckling now as I remember some of the crap that I used to do with this guy. He was one of my last masterminds I've made and got to 50. So he was kind of more of an experiment because I wanted to see how this electric affinity worked. So I'm like, well, let me test it out because I think it was more recently added to the game at the time when I built this guy. But anyway, those are the main things for electric affinity. So it's just a very twitchy, clicky, heavily buffing, high survivability, because you're just constantly healing people. I mean, honestly, if your teammates start dying, you suck. It's really impossible to let them die with this set. It's probably the easiest buff set I've ever played. It's just tiring. At least, again, the way I play it. So you'll see for yourselves. Now, other than that, you got Dark Blast, you got Gloom. Those are just some single target blasts. Did I take the? Yeah, I took the chance to hold those. It gives me a little bit of control, right? I took the life drain to heal myself, plus has a chance for negative damage, so I get a little extra out of that because I am not slotting it for damage as a blast. I'm slotting it for a heal. So I have one other way to heal myself, so I'll just throw that into my attack chain. So pretty much my attack chain is blasting my allies, and then I'll often just target through them my single target blasts, or I'll target through my, if I have pets only. And then other than that, I've got the electric fences. That's a little AoE immobilize, and I put the chance to heal on that guy. So I have another way to heal myself. And oh, by the way, I threw that into Energized Circuit. So if you look at Energized Circuit, I slotted it for some endurance draining here. Yes. Or sorry, endurance modding here. But I also put the chance to self-heal, which I'm pretty sure procs on me, and the chance for plus N. So as I'm buffing my allies, I'm also healing myself and buffing my endurance. Or if it doesn't work on me, it should work on whoever I chain target and potentially heal them. I forget exactly how it works, so we're gonna test that one too. Okay, so watch out for this one as I hit Energized Circuit. Who gets the heal? Who gets the plus endurance? Is it me or is it my targets? Maybe both. I don't know. We'll find out. And then there's Thunderstrike, right? I already talked about this. This is more of a kind of a chuckle, laugh, smash somebody in the face and watch them go flying. Although I have the knock back to knock down, proc chance here. So not chance, but it converts it to it just knocks them down, pummels them to the ground, and then your zombies just start turning into their fleshy bellies. Okay, let's take a look at the total numbers so we can see where the heck this is going and what the plan is. Right, crappy defenses, right? That's true. But smash lethal energy to resistances are pretty dang solid. I got 2/3. Your cap is 75. And with that, plus just my ability to heal myself, buff myself, and get my recovery, regeneration, absorb with all these circuits here. This is actually solid enough. And then I have Mez protection from Faraday Cage. Okay, so I'm not too worried about survivability. And if I am in bodyguard mode, I really don't have to worry about it too much at all. My recovery is, going to be 2-8 versus 1-2, so that's, not the best. But again, I have the ability to regain endurance here, plus the chance for plus end is possible. And then I don't know if something through, yeah, I don't think you gain any endurance through shock. But anyway, so you got ways to get back your recovery. Anyway, I mean, really, you and your allies should not run out of endurance. You and your allies should not run out of health, especially the endurance. I mean, anytime an electric has been on my team, I am, no pun intended, ecstatic. It's just because I know I'm not going to run out of endurance. It's beautiful, especially at lower levels. Oh my God, it's crazy. So boom, right? I've got plenty of, so I got enough, resistance to survive, and I got all the buffs to keep me alive. And then my recovery's good. My regen's gonna be good. I'm not worried about that stuff. You don't really need too much recharge because these things are so fast as it is. I suppose if you wanted to be really sick, you could build for recharge and just start firing these circuits on like auto or something. That would be crazy. But anyway, let's take a look at the what you call it, incarnates here to see what I did with these. Cardiac. This is going to give me endurance reduction. So I don't even, that's even less I need to worry about when I activate this, right? My drain is down to 1. That kicks up. This is mostly not because of the endurance reduction. It's for the range, which I've mentioned before. I like having boosted range. I don't want a slot range myself, but if I can get it through like something like cardiac, I'll take it. Because all those circuits, remember, that I have to target an ally, now my allies can be even further away. So this is important, both not just your own attacks, but your ally buffs. But the biggest reason is because of the damage resistance. If you watch the Smash Lethal Energy, I'm 65, 8, 66 there. So when I activate that, now I'm, 71-ish. So I'm getting a few more percent there. I'm getting much closer to cap. I don't think I have any sleep fear. I do have absorb, so that's the other thing that's gonna get boosted, right? I'm gonna boost my absorb with this power. So, it's gonna help me in multiple areas. That's why I took it. I took ion, thematic, electrical, blast. Just went, I think, raw energy in this one. Damage, no hold, although I could see throwing the hold in here just because why not? But I am sort of underslotted in damage, so maybe that's why I went that way. But I could take the radial and not get upset about it. Gravitic, minus recharge, minus movement, minus recovery. It's obvious why I took this one because I want the minus recovery to stack with the other minus recoveries that I do have. Because I'm going to have some minus endurance drain on the fences attack here. Thunder Strike does do minus endurance. And then Shock, you already know, does the minus endurance, minus recovery. So with those 3 attacks and now all my other attacks doing some minus recovery options, that's going to be a useful, stacking potential, right? So maybe I can keep things drained. And then once they're drained, if I'm on a team with Electric Blast players, like Corruptors or whatever, then they're going to get their extra damage out of that. So that's the thing there. Minus movement, minus recharge, that's also useful just to keep things from running away or being able to attack me. Ageless, plus endurance, plus recharge. I already mentioned why, a lot of masterminds need extra endurance, so you need that. The plus recharge is gonna, bring all those powers back even faster when I click it. Plus the debuff resistance to protect me from, minus recharges, minus endurances, that kind of thing myself. And that's going to kind of stack, I think, a little bit with the Faraday cage here. So that's going to be pretty good. And then let me just take a look at energizing circuit now with that clicked is going to be, let me unlock this. The rechargeness is 14.3. So that's crazy. 14.3. Rejuvenating circuits 2.6 seconds. Empowering circuit is 4.9, so 5 seconds. Insulating is 6.6. So I mean, under 15 seconds on these circuits, all 4 of them when I click ageless. So that's when I'm really gonna go sick. Took the phantoms because they're gonna be the ghosts of the patients that did not survive Dr. Voltaous's reanimation experimentation. And then I took my infamous support radial empowerment. The one thing I will also mention about this, aside from the obvious damage, accuracy, defense stuff, which is great for myself and the pets, support hybrid has a inbuilt, what do you want to call it, built-in endurance discount. So when you have this slotted, it provides 10% endurance across the board with the tier 4, I think is what it is. So that is an always on. So that's going to help me with the endurance things because I'm going to be clicking powers left and right, as you can tell. And so if you look at my totals with all this stuff now, my recovery is, let me turn that off for a second because I didn't take the recovery side. I took the debuff resistance. So I guess it doesn't matter. But you look at my recovery's 2.8, my endurance drain's 0.9. So that's going to be phenomenal. I don't need to worry about, endurance at all. It also helps with the defense numbers here. So anyway, that, guys, is this crazy, stupid, twitchy, electrified build, Dr. Voltaous. So that is all I want to say about it. I'm going to go ahead and show you what it does in-game, solo, and then some team missions. I will see you on Excelsior. Be right back.